The 2016 presidential candidates are campaigning hard throughout the East ahead of a series of critical primary contests. Voters from Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, and Maryland will all go to the polls Tuesday. But with only a handful of states left on the primary calendar, it's coming down to delegate math. Right now, Ted Cruz cannot win the nomination outright. His only hope is an open convention. But Donald Trump may now have the steam to wrap it up before the convention. Can Trump get delegates to move to his side? Plus, on the Democratic side, will Bernie Sanders continue his race now knowing that he cannot win? Election 2016 is our topic. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page and on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us in the newsroom, our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant, Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Looks like Trump's got a huge lead in California as well, guys.
He does, and we're going to start with the GOP and Donald Trump. Ted Cruz now cannot win the nomination outright, and he has to focus on whether or not he can force an open convention and try to take it at the convention. And it's looking like Donald Trump may actually be able to pull this thing out. Jackie and I were looking the other day at a webpage that I found from the Washington Post, which showed that if you manipulated it, showed that if Donald Trump, what was it, 48%? If Donald Trump wins just 48% of the vote in the remaining primaries, he's going to secure the nomination, and that would be the end of Ted Cruz's campaign. It's a very difficult road now. Donald Trump is making the argument now, Jackie, that if it goes into an open convention, that it's difficult for Ted Cruz, even though he does. I agree with you. Ted Cruz has a better ground game at the convention. But if he goes into the convention with the lead that he's got, it's going to be difficult for these delegates who are already tied to him to switch to Ted Cruz after the first vote.
If you're a Ted Cruz supporter like I am, you know mathematically the only person in our primary, in the GOP primary, that can get the 1237 is Donald Trump. Ted can't and Kasich can't. The ground game that could happen if in a contested convention is when you have the delegates that, remember, Rubio has, the delegates that Kasich, and I don't even know why Kasich is still in the race, and then a lot of these other states you're seeing that don't have primaries or caucuses, that Ted, because of his excellent ground game, is actually getting those delegates as well. So we hear Donald Trump whining and complaining when he loses. When he loses anything, he complains that the system is not fair. Well, actually, Donald Trump has been doing very well with our system. He has a very large lead with the delegates. He is continuing to get a lot of the popular votes. So I think he's going to stop complaining as we get closer.
Right.
There's a good possibility he may just get the 1237 and then we don't have to hear about it.
Assuming that he doesn't get it and it goes to an open convention, his argument is, look, you can't leave me if I don't get it on the first ballot. I've already got this huge lead, and you can't leave me now. The Ted Cruz and the Kasich and these other people need to come to me.
Look, there were 17 people running, and the argument was made that if a lot of them dropped out, the vote would consolidate against Donald Trump. Well, the vote that many of those candidates were getting went to Donald Trump rather than go away from it. Donald Trump represents the views of the Republican primary voters in a very significant way, and at some point we have to start reconciling that. It's no longer that he's a fringe candidate. He's winning primaries in big numbers. And as we go into California, he's likely to have a strong sweep once more. And even if he does come short within 30, 40 votes, Pennsylvania delegates, 54 uncommitted delegates, he's likely to get a hold of all of them. And so he's got a strong path to 1237. But even if he doesn't, he's going to get a lot of those leftover delegates.
I still don't understand how this guy who is unconventional a candidate, whether he's a Democrat or a Republican, regardless, how Donald Trump is winning anybody.
You have a lot of angry people. It's the same way why Bernie Sanders is doing so well on the Democrat side. You have a lot of angry people, and Donald Trump came out with two policies: immigration and foreign policy. Those are the two things that he's been harping on. Those are two things that he knows that our current president is weak on, and you're seeing a lot of white men. That's a majority of his base who are rallying around him. coincidentally, a lot of white men are the ones rallying around Bernie, too.
But Donald Trump's never saying anything, though. That's the problem. Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's take a look at Twitter and a look at the latest Fox News poll as it relates to California. Trump, you can see there with a huge lead, 49% to Cruz's 22% and Kasich's 20%. This is polling for the California Republican primary. Bradley says Cruz is set to thump Never Trump when this process reaches the convention. More proof that Cruz plays chess while Trump plays checkers. He believes, Cruz is going to prevail there. And now switching to the Democrats, this person says they try to inject drama, but delegate math, don't lie, stick a fork in Sanders. He's done. Do you think Sanders is done?
He is. And there's... After New York, there's no way for Bernie Sanders to prevail. He was already at a point where he couldn't win. After New York, I don't see any way for Bernie Sanders to win. He'd have to win 60, 70% of the vote moving forward with every other primary. He can't do it. And really, at this point, isn't he just hurting his own party?
Well, I think next Tuesday is going to be a telltale sign, because after Tuesday, mathematically, it becomes completely impossible for him to win, even at 60%. So it'll be important to see what the tone that he takes. Bernie Sanders has introduced ideas into this campaign cycle for both the Republican and Democratic sides that's changed the debate. And I think he's saying some important things. He's done a good job, but now it's going to be time for him to step aside.
Something that our viewers said, and he said, when we get to our contested, that's where you have the grassroots, the real hardcore Republican primary voters. And that's why Cruz has a very good shot in a contested convention. Bernie continues to outrace Hillary, and that's why he continues to be relevant in the Democrat Party.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. We'll see what happens with the primary next Tuesday, and we'll be back next week wrapping up the hottest stories of the week.
All right, we look forward